What's up, everybody? It's been a while. I'm Danilo Evangelista. Welcome back. I've been a while. I've been off. I've been doing my own things, but decided to check in and do a video today. Come on and see what's going on. And luckily, there isn't a lot happening, but just decided to make a video today to see, of course, what is. And while a lot might not be happening right now, maybe could we be talking about stuff happening in a few weeks from now as we get later on into the hurricane season? Who knows? But I just decided to make a video today to kind of go over what's going on right now. And of course, we still do have something. Tropical Storm Phillippe, 45 miles an hour with a pressure of 1,004 millibars. This is really not going to be way too much of a concern. It's, of course, a sheared storm. It's not really going to become any stronger. But of course, with impacts, there are a few impacts right now ongoing for some of the islands, or they have been, because Phillippe has indeed moved very close. I think, in fact, actually made landfall on some of the islands, but of course, it's a very weak storm. But bottom line, this is not too much of a threat, especially towards the United States. This is going to turn up and away and far from the east coast of the United States. But of course, maybe we might have to watch in Bermuda for something. But here's Phillippe, and you can see it sheared, very disorganized. Only a few convective pulses here and there, and they're far away from the low-level circulation, which is somewhere in here. And I know this is not the proper satellite to look at the low-level swirl, but even then, it looks barely defined and not very prominent at all. So this is definitely a storm that is just barely hanging on. As I talked about, of course, though, not really gonna be much of a threat to the east coast. Gonna stay far away from the United States. Maybe some rip currents along the east coast as the usual impacts that we typically get, but I mean, those two maybe will not as much, because this is indeed a weak storm anyways. Although, as I did mention, Bermuda very much in the cone, and this is still tropical by the time it gets to Bermuda, and it passes very close as well. So maybe if this does indeed end up gaining some strength between now and the time it reaches towards Bermuda, I think it does a little bit. But at bottom line, impacts to Bermuda might be something to watch, but of course only a tropical storm then. Definitely not the worst thing in the world for them as well. And then we also have Tropical Storm Lydia in the Pacific. Let's really quickly go to that on the page, Lydia. And then really quickly want to show the 7-day graphical outlook. There's a 70% chance off the coast of Mexico, and I think this is something that might actually be interesting for Mexico, but that is something with the modeling that we'll really have to see whether or not it pans out, of course, once something actually does develop in the Atlantic. And of course, in the Atlantic side of things right now, there's just Phillippe and not much else happening beyond Phillippe. But of course, back to Lydia, that too a pretty disorganized storm. You could clearly see it, a lot of shear ongoing, but if we look at the forecast, it is expected to become a hurricane eventually. Within the 5-day range, it's expected to be a hurricane, but at the end of the 5 days, don't know if something will change between now and then that maybe this ultimately doesn't end up being a hurricane. But I don't know, I really haven't checked the models too much on this, but NHC expected to be a hurricane within the next 5 days, and at least from model guidance that I've seen and I've also pulled up, within the next 5 days as well, kind of seems to be going west instead of anywhere towards the northwest or anywhere closer towards the Mexican coastline. So no need to worry about Lydia, at least for any impacts to land, so that's good. But other than that, let's move along, see what we got next. And of course, I had to bring up our climate map as usual with the sea surface temperature anomalies. Doing the old stuff that I would always do, gotta get back into the groove. Sea surface temperature anomalies, and how I mentioned, could the hurricane season last into the later portions of the year? Could we have an active end to the hurricane season? And you'll wonder why I'm questioning that. Look at the Atlantic as a whole, and not just at the Atlantic. Look specifically in the Western Atlantic, especially past 60 degrees west, and look at how many um, anomalies that we have that are above 1 degree Celsius. Basically, at least if you're looking in the Caribbean and the Gulf, it's basically the entire Caribbean and Gulf regions that are registering with anomalies above 1 degree Celsius, above normal. And I mean, the whole entire year this year, the Atlantic has been extremely hot. Probably a reason that played as to why the Atlantic season so far this year has been pretty active, despite the fact that we have a pretty prominent and pretty strong El Nino out there, at least in the deep tropical region. Even in the Pacific, it kind of looks a little lackluster in terms of its signature there. You do notice, remember how I'd always talk about a negative PDO signature, a colder, horseshoe shape off the western coast of the Pacific. And that usually is not something that you would see coincide with an El Nino, but we have that this year. Maybe that has to do something with how the Atlantic has been behaving this year as well. I don't know. We'll probably study it in future years to come, but certainly this year been very interesting. But want to focus again very closely on the Western Atlantic, and the Caribbean and Gulf. And I should have brought up the in close view of the anomalies on there, but I guess that's a note for next time. Bottom line, it's very warm. And especially if you're familiar with climatology, as we get towards the later portions of the season, as we're in right now in October and November, of course, we see a lot of the activity begin to shift away from out here in the MDR and a lot more towards the Caribbean and Gulf. And especially in a warm year like this, when we have conditions that are very warm sea surface temperature anomalies, and I'm going to show you in a second potentially a favorable atmospheric pattern with MJO, rising air in the upper atmosphere. When we have those things mixed together, things do tend to come along in the Caribbean, and that should especially be evident within the last few years that we saw. And especially this year, maybe something could come along even despite the fact that we have a pretty prominent El Nino. And I guess you could just take that from how the season has been so far. But I do want to mention really quickly on the fact of the atmosphere. Andy Hazelton tweeted this today, actually. It's pretty late for MDR activity, but the timing on several global models does sort of show a CCKW passage, a convectively coupled Kelvin wave, basically just a cell of passing rising air in the Atlantic. And we always obviously associate rising air with more thunderstorms and more moisture, which is a contributing factor, a positive contributing factor to hurricane development. So if you're not really familiar with these terms, just if that's one piece of information that you could take and understand, certainly take it, because that's generally what we mean when we talk about this. But he does mention, curious if the environment will support something developing or struggling, of course, like Phillippe or Rina, but bottom line, curious if there will be anything with development at all. And of course what he's talking about is all these greens here. This represents the positive MJO signals, rising air in the atmosphere. And you could take a look down here at the key to show what part of the world he's talking about. And you see we're in the Atlantic region, we're in the Caribbean, that's the Gulf, that's Africa. And you can see where's all that green. It's within that region, also in the Eastern Pacific as well. And we might even get something in the Eastern Pacific too. Heck, the NHC forecasts something to happen in the Eastern Pacific within the next 7 days, so we might get something there. But of course, keeping in mind we have very warm sea surface temperature anomalies in the Atlantic side of things, in the Caribbean and the Gulf, and we have these favorable conditions in the upper atmosphere taking place. You gotta just wonder, will something come together? Will we have something that produces in the late season? And this lasts all the way into mid-October. This is October 17th then, and we still have these positive signals, and even over Africa as well. Take a look at that closer in time. We have a positive MJO signal, very strong as well, over Western Africa, of course, where we see our tropical waves originate from. And of course, another perspective, the Atlantic MDR. This is the sea surface temperature anomaly chart. Basically this, but imagine all these anomalies being averaged out over a general value and being put onto a graph. This is basically what that is, and we see the anomalies 1.14 degrees Celsius above normal. So the Atlantic MDR as a whole does indeed average out to 1 degree Celsius above normal. And so that does mean the Atlantic is very, very warm. Certainly a lot of energy out there, to go around for something to develop. So it certainly is a question as to whether something will. And I mean, I'm just going to tell you right now, there's a lot of time. We still have 50 plus days of the hurricane season left. The hurricane season does not end till the end of next month. So certainly something could happen between now and then, and things definitely have happened in the past. Heck, our strongest storm ever recorded in the Atlantic, Hurricane Wilma, back in 2005, that happened in mid to late October. That formed, I think, on the 15th of October, and we're on October 3rd. So not saying a Wilma is going to happen, but I'm just saying stuff has happened in mid to late October. Hey, also take 2020. Remember that we had not only a Wilma, but a Wilma, or you get it, a strong storm, but we had multiple strong storms throughout the late season, specifically in November. If you remember 2020, we had, I think, 2 Category 4s, and we're talking about conditions right now for October. Certainly a whole lot left of the season to go, and I'll even show it on the climatology graph as well. A lot of people always tend to talk about a secondary peak for October, and this is where we are right now. Yes, we are on a general downcline. We are heading towards the latter half of the season. Things do calm down, but a lot of people always talk about between mid to late October, you notice that there is kind of like a leveling off, and almost as if it kind of jumps up for a little bit. And even here in late October, there's kind of almost a secondary peak. You see that? Kind of jumps up in late October, and even here too, mid to late October, we tend to have a period in climatology that's been shown as if it almost briefly jumps up in activity. So there definitely is some historical precedents for things kicking up for a while in October, mid to late October, even into early November, before it kind of levels down. So that does go to show the hurricane season, we still have a lot of it left, and we have these favorable conditions there, or potentially favorable conditions coming up. It is just obviously a matter of will things come together, and especially in a year like this, you never know. You really don't know, and I would especially speculate to never rule out something, of course, in any given year to develop, especially if the things are there for it to happen. Really, you really just can't rule out. You can't rule out anything, honestly, not even just with this, but in weather in general, you can't really rule out anything at all. So we'll just have to see. Obviously, posting for the first time today in what feels like eons. And if you're wondering what the future direction of this channel is, for those that have been following me, I know probably not a lot. I don't have 1,000 subscribers or anything, but I definitely feel like I have enough subscribers that there are some people that do kind of keep tabs on my videos regularly. And if you're wondering about what the future of this channel will be, my honest answer to you is I don't know. I kind of just posted today, just to kind of catch up, kind of like you see a friend that you haven't seen in a while, and then you kind of see them once and you guys catch up. Take a good while to catch up and talk, but then maybe you don't see each other for a while again after that. Maybe that's going to be the situation with us here. Maybe I'll try to start posting on a semi-regular basis. There really isn't a lot going on. Once things start kicking up again and we start getting something interesting, maybe I'll start trying to post more often, at least put something out. But I guess today I just wanted to post a video to kind of prove, I guess, that I'm alive. I gotta check in. I gotta prove to you that I'm still here. So I guess that's what I'm doing with this video today, but I really don't know what's going to be the future. I'm just, trying to post. I've been very busy lately, especially for the past few months. With my life has been very busy, so I really have not been able to really keep on par with YouTube as much. But have gotten a little bit interested in starting up the channel again, so might as well do it. And maybe I'll try to post on a semi-regular basis once every few days or so, but I really can't promise anything. But other than that, I guess that is it for today. If you really enjoyed, if you liked, would appreciate it if you like, comment, subscribe. Heck, subscribe. Maybe I'm not going to post often, but once you do see me, at least you'll get the notifications when I do upload. So we really appreciate it if you subscribe, and enjoy the rest of your evening. As I always say, stay safe, peace, love, and kindness to all, and I'll catch you soon, eventually. Bye.